Hey guys, welcome back. What's your dream home? Let me know in the comments below. What is your ideal dream home someday that you could have? Maybe it's a home on a farm with like 10, 20 acres. Maybe it's a home in the city, you really like the city life. Or maybe it's a home on this beautiful lake. You want to take the boat out, you want to go fishing, you want to go swimming with your family, go jet skiing, whatever it is. My dream is to have a house on the lake. I grew up in a town called Waterford, Michigan, and Waterford's got like 34 lakes. And I grew up seeing all the houses on the lakes and everyone going out and partying and having fun. And that's always been my dream. And I think I'm gonna get there. That's my goal, is to someday have a house on the lake. I can get out on my dock, go out on my boat early in the morning. Probably not on a morning like this. This is pretty wavy and pretty windy, but that's my dream. But the problem that I think a lot of people have is that we bite off more than we can chew when it comes to home ownership. Now, one of the things that we got to be careful of is that the banks will always loan us more than we can afford, guys. They really will. If you do the math when it comes to your finances, the banks will always give you more than what you think you can afford. And sometimes it's tempting to fall into the trap of taking out a mortgage for more than what you can afford. And I remember I've purchased 3 homes in my life, and every time the bank has always offered me more than what I thought I could afford. And I've never fallen into that trap, okay? Every time that I've decided to purchase a home, I've always given the bank only one income. My wife and I have both worked 2 jobs. Each of us had a job, so that's 2 jobs in our household. But I've always only given the bank my income, okay? And why is that? Because you need to live below your means. Now, when a bank offers you a loan, you should always assume that that loan is too much, and you should probably take that amount and subtract about 20% from that loan that the bank tries to offer you. Okay, so let's just say the bank offers you $1 million to take out a loan so that you can buy $1 million home on the lake. I think I could probably get a loan for that much, okay? I don't want to though. But if they were to offer me $1 million, I would subtract 20%. That is really what I could probably maybe afford, is $800,000. To be honest, I wouldn't take a loan out for that much. I think that's too much in general. But that's just a simple way to do the math. You need to subtract out 20% of whatever they offer you. That's really probably the amount you can go with. Okay, now ways to mitigate that is to obviously have more of a down payment. That can help. But still, even then, be careful. You don't want to live house poor. What does that mean? Well, you don't want to be able to not be able to furnish your house. Or let's say you want to live on a lake, you will not be able to even afford to buy a boat and go out on the water. You'll be suffering sitting in your house, looking at the lake and saying, oh, I can't even go out there because I can't afford the gas, or I can't afford the maintenance on a boat, or I can't even install a dock every year because lakes freeze up in Michigan. I can't even install a dock because I can't afford it. Okay, so that's the thing you got to be careful of when you're trying to get a mortgage and afford a home. Today it's even harder with homes being more expensive than what they really should be, but that's the reality we live in. Now, the reason I say you got to be very careful is because if you want to be able to afford a home on one of these lakes or in the inner city or have a farm with 20 or 100 acres, you need to be careful early and live within your means so that you can save up and invest and become a multi-millionaire. That's the only way you're going to be able to afford a home on the lake. Okay, you need to be able to outperform the housing market for 20, 30, 40 years while you're investing, because the stock market will outperform the housing market every day, okay? Depending on what you're invested in, as long as you're invested in some growth stocks and some good dividend stocks, you will outperform the housing market and you will get a chance at one of these properties. I guarantee it. If you live within your means, if you don't go house poor when it comes to getting a mortgage when you're young. You need to be able to have enough money left over to invest in to outperform what the housing market is going to do. Okay? So be careful when you go to a bank and you apply for a mortgage. I know you're all excited. You want to be able to get into a new house. Maybe you're raising a family. Maybe you're pregnant. Who knows? I know you're excited. You want to get into a house, but just be careful. Be mindful. Do the math on your own. Don't rely on the bank to do the math for your mortgage payment. Do the math on your own to understand, hey, I can really afford this payment based on my down payment and what mortgage I'm going to take out. So that's my advice to you guys when it comes to taking out a mortgage, is don't go house poor, okay? Don't rely on the banks to figure out what you can afford. Only you can know what you're allowed to afford, okay? And I can't afford a house on the lake. No way, okay? I need to, for my investments to outperform the housing market so that I can get my dream home. That is my goal. Someday I'll get out there and I'll be vlogging and YouTubing for you guys out on the lake. But until then, I need to live within my means. I need to stay within the class that I can afford, whether it's the middle class or the upper middle class or the upper class. I need to stay within that pyramid I talked about on a previous video I'm launching today. The class pyramid, you got to know where you stand, and you got to be a class below where you can afford, okay? That way, someday you can get to the lake, or you can get to the farm or the city or the mountains, whatever it is you want. So hopefully you guys can live out your dreams and get there. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this. Have you ever noticed that the banks will give you more or offer you more if you've ever been through that process of getting a mortgage? I think you guys have probably seen this. So let me know in the comments, and everyone, like and subscribe and take a look at my previous video if you could. And everyone, have a great day. Thanks. Bye.